see the need to discipline all his children, then Zambia is going to be left for the dog.
Let the people talk.
Iron drama kudibe economy avuta. Batiganzire kwa hivi tarifa hiki ya malaiti VI.
Your voice.
And I repeat, my life is the Luchi if you think that until one day they come to you. Mr.
Let the people talk. Every Tuesday and Friday at 9 a.m. on Phoenix FM.
Good morning. Exodus 23, verse 2. Do not follow the crowd in doing wrong. When you give testimony in lawsuit, do not pervert justice by siding with the crowd, and do not show favoritism to a poor man in his lawsuit. This is a reference, my guess, to Kalumbila. What are your thoughts of the mob justice, that killed an innocent person? And when we talk about mob justice, this has been going on for many, many years.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. It's a pleasure to be here. And good morning to our listeners. Indeed, what happened in Kalumbila is tragic. It's something that shouldn't be happening. It's something that we should not be tolerating or allowing. And the Bible says God is a God of justice. In fact, elsewhere it says that righteousness and justice are the foundation of his throne. And so we need to ensure that justice is done to that matter, because when you spill innocent blood, the implications are quite significant on the land itself and in the area. So I felt horrible. I still feel gutted, and that should not be allowed, because next time you can perpetuate that kind of trend where at the suspicion of anything somebody can be gutted, and we've seen these things happen before, and we should not allow this kind of thing.
Yeah, thank you so much, and good morning to your listeners. Yeah, Ambassador, I think for me it's a issue to do with moral fiber. I think we are moving away from the best fiber campus or a social order that we need to uphold, because even just joining in the beating or whatever could have happened, I think it has to do more with moral consciousness. We just need to see how best we can work out plans around legal education, awareness, and those sort of things like that from that perspective as police and governance aspects. Then when you look at it from the Bible point of view, I think it's quite clear biblically to say that you cannot kill. And I think they have gone against what the Bible speaks. So it's not something that one would be able to take home about. And it's a sad development, quite devastating events, I should be able to say.
Two quick issues we thrash out before we come back to the program men. The inflation, 7.1. What an achievement. Better than that, the Kwacha is now 18 to $1. Again, another massive, development. Very quickly, I start with you.
Well, I'm happy we have an economist, Kelvin. I think he has better insights, how the internal workings are. But obviously, inflation is a cost. So when it comes down, it helps to moderate the costs. And then with regard to the Kwacha appreciation, yes, it's very significant. I was about to travel, and just 2 days ago or so, it was almost 20 Kwacha, I think, tending towards that. And then today I've seen 18 Kwacha within 2 days to Kwacha. So I'm not,
Aren't you shocked? And before Kelvin comes in, what is the implication, on your sector, the fuel sector?
Well, of course, the pump prices, fundamentally, they are supported by the exchange rate and the prices on the international market. So if the Kwacha appreciates, the dollar loses value, then your exposure to a high price is moderated. So if it is at that end and we are about to see a new price, then obviously I think the industry might not see a higher price increase as it's supposed to be because of where the Kwacha is sitting. But there is something which also happens on the ground, because when a price has been, like in the paper we see 18 Kwacha, but if you go in the banks, when the industry goes to look for the dollars to import the fuel, they don't find in most cases the price that is announced. The exchange rate that is announced, it's like there is a mismatch. It's not exactly what is in the banks, and that disconnect is what creates challenges for the industry and pushes them into a loss-making position. Because when we say the exchange rate is now 18 Kwacha, when the industry goes to look for dollars, they're looking for $10 million. Let them find it at 18 Kwacha.
Absolutely.
But if they find it, the banks are selling it higher, or they cannot find it, then it becomes a problem. It means they are not able to benefit. The consumer might benefit, but the industry itself is not able to benefit because it will be plunged into a loss making. Those are some of the concerns.
You economists, send numbers, don't lie.
Okay, so the effect that we are seeing in the Kwacha is coming from different complementing factors. Number one, we've got strong copper production, which is taking place, which has actually been able to be sustained right from the last year's performance. Much to this also, we have seen also a combination of Bank of Zambia intervention, especially when it has really now gone toward the 18 Kwacha. Obviously, it's from the backdrop of what we saw in the geopolitical tensions, where we are hoping that we can now save some effect that can come in the next pricing cycle. So what is basically playing as mechanics here is that we are basically trying to work out a system where we can sustain the movement so that it does not really jump over 21 Kwacha or 20 Kwacha slightly. So what is also relating to the inflation also is that once we see Kwacha moderating with this good effect in a way, it's also moderating the inflation that we have actually been able to see. So on the percentage or inflation pack, we are also having good effect that is coming from the Kwacha's appreciation. Then on the overall, the inflation leading, which we are seeing coming to 7.1 as for this particular month, is basically coming as a result of production output that we're experiencing this period around. So that is quite seasonal, I should be able to mention. So meaning unless maybe we also make some contentment around production and post-harvest, then we should be able to see that this can sustain. But as it is right now, we are playing with key matrices to see that inflation does not go out of the roof, maintaining it within policy corridor, and obviously also looking at Kwacha to sustain it with the support of the copper production, which is basically quite important from that perspective.
The issue that has been mentioned, that the pricing is not in tandem with the trading price.
Okay, so what is happening with inflation in terms of relating to price output effect is that we are basically sustaining the price from sharp changes. Obviously, we know that inflation is just basically a rate at which the speed of goods can actually be able to move. So meaning we've got on the personal level or at household level, we are putting that disposable income aspect, meaning we will not be able to see any extra expenditures on the household spending patterns. Then when you look at the businesses, obviously we are creating that predictability sense of life where we are able to predict in the business in terms of how the investment pattern should be able to turn out. So it's basically just anchoring the expectations. So we should not be able to see anything that can sadly come as a shock in terms of pricing factors. So we are creating that's the stability balance right now with that range.
I believe. Do you believe in what Kevin has said? Yes, I believe from Chandley Moore. This is the Friday edition of Let the People Talk. We coming back with the topic of the day.
For kindly taking away the thing I had, 'cause it could have hurt me. Protection don't feel good in the moment, but looking back, wasn't trying to be disrespectful. You know I'm stubborn, I never would have let go. But trust is hard with a broken heart, but with you, I finally learned. It felt like you didn't come through for me when you give me what I needed. I don't wanna love you for who I made you to be up in my head, but I wanna love you for exactly who you are and nothing less. Cause when I try to piece together my own version, you're always better. But trust is hard with a broken heart, but with you I finally learned. Felt like you didn't come through for me when you didn't do exactly what I wanted, but you always give me what I needed. Foolish of me to box you in. The shape of my broken heart didn't leave you much room, but you always give me what I needed. Oh, you know, you know.
This is the Friday edition of Let the People Talk. The Israel-USA war with Iran is having a devastating impact on fuel production, supply, and pricing. Today, on the last Friday of the month edition of Let the People Talk, I have two of the best brains in their respective fields. Dr. Johnston Chikwenda, energy expert, and Kelvin Chisanga, economist. Good morning, gentlemen, and welcome to the program. First and foremost, how much are you being impacted by the economy, Dr. Chikwenda?
Yes.
On a personal level and on a business level.
Yeah, we are impacted, and first, and you will see where we are coming from as a country. We are coming from serious energy crisis, electricity crisis, which impacted a lot of things, and so from business. It's been tight, because the environment has been, austerity measures, and so you find the customers, to make payments and to pay what they owe you and things like that. It's been very, very hectic. Yeah. So if I would say that I'm not impacted myself at personal level and family, I think that would be not being fair and justice. I think we felt the impact of what we are going through, like everyone else, and it's been hectic.
Tell me, Calvin, as a rider to what Dr. Chikwanda has said, why in your giving us the perspective of the economy today, take on board what Dr. Chikwanda has said. People are feeling the pressure. But when you look at the economic indicators, and which we even made reference to when we started, inflation, single digits, Kwacha, very strong. All these should present a positive picture across the board, but this is not the case.
Okay, so thank you so much, Ambassador, for having me. I think I will start with the aspect of the positive macroeconomic convergence that we have actually been able to see. In short, the stability that we are basically recording. We've got some good conditions, yes, in terms of forex market performances. There's that stability sense. Then we've got also inflation tutoring downward, getting within the policy corridor, which has actually been good as well, and many other good effects. But again, the key issue here is that we are coming from a very turbulent situation, especially when we refer it to the debt restructuring process, which basically also was something that has actually been able to be put in night shape right now. So if you look at different economic events that Zambia experienced, some linked even to global market, others also just internal aspect, like the drought challenge, energy crisis, a number of things put together, even COVID as well. So all these factors have actually been able to take us to that level of reflection. And now coming to an issue of debt in essence, this was actually one of the biggest things that was choking the economy. So to avoid getting to some levels of bad sovereignty-letting capacity in terms of credit aspect, we were to dive into the issues of trying to see how we can basically work out some flexible means in terms of trying to pull out from there and also make obligation as and when they fall due, especially when it comes to debt servicing. So now that we have done all those parameters, looking at the policy framework also that needed to align in terms of trying to make sure that we have sustainable development regarding the debt issue, we have also made all those progressive aspects. So what we have sitting on, it's something that is just almost like an airplane about to take off, and we have done the necessary key facilitation of some sort. So because of certainly standing order in terms of issues of risk appetites or risk potential aspects which are standing, that's the reason why we seem to be dragging a bit in a way. One of the peculiar interests that Zambia is actually coming into this year with an aspect to go for election. If you look at the growth profile of any projection, we would be able to say that even election is a risky on growth projection, meaning we can do things contrary to our plan, we can go overboard in terms of fiscal discipline and all that. So already we are sitting on now on two big things that you should be able to mention: geopolitical risk, which is actually standing very strong as well, which can also detour our plan in terms of what we should be able to achieve. Our projected, we are looking at maybe achieving about 6.5%. But from the look of things now, we are even now downscaling down to something like 5.5, 5.2, 5.8, somewhere there. Owing to the fact that we could not anticipate all these things that are coming in place. Much more, obviously, Zambia has also been able to receive some quantifiable supply in terms of electricity, of course, fuel issues, having some sense of security as well. And much to this also, what I should be able to say that, yes, the key challenge, I would agree with almost everyone, even out there, to say Zambia now is facing a challenge where to transmit that good effect at the macro level, micro level, now trying to bring it to the community in terms of trying to foster prosperity. So that is where the issue is. But again, with a light framework, and with a bit of patience in terms of investment, we should be able to see that we can narrow that gap. But of course, not forgetting the risk factors that are still standing right in front of us. So if we can basically create an ambience for growth and also create policies that should be able to enhance investment outlook that we're able to see, I think we should be able to sustain from there.
Tell me, one of the major issues that this government has dealt with, and you allude to that, is debt restructuring. I'll ask you a two-pronged question here. They've restructured the debt. At the same time, they are borrowing very heavily. We don't really see where this money with their borrowing is going to, which sectors the money they are borrowing is going to. That's part of the question too. Nobody has ever answered this question. With all these natural resources, sugilite, gold, now, no government has tried to manage these resources in the same line as copper so that this country can benefit. If it had to do that, the economic growth of this country would be talking about 10-15%, because the 4-5% we're talking about is insignificant in relation to the growth of the population. Very quickly on that.
It's true. Though the population growth rate is standing at 2.3% per annum, but again, also with regards to your question, in reference to the aspect of why are we going with the more debts when we are basically in debts ourselves? I think clearly I would say that we have done substantially very good in terms of trying to flip the coin in regards to the type of debts that we should now be having. I expect that we are creating more good quality compared to what we had. Maybe just to give you a background, we had a complexity of different debt contractions, which some were even coming from capital markets, stock market instruments, and others were even now highly commercial in the sense that we are non-concessional in their nature, and they are the bulk of maybe even just about maybe slightly beyond 10% in terms of interest rates. But what we should be able to do with a template that we have also been able to work out with the IMF is to look at debts that should be able to be almost close to 0% or somehow if they go higher it should be 2%. So that is what we're trying to do, to exchange the debt portfolio from high interest paying, and also to create more what we call moratorium to pay much longer compared to the way we are required to pay, because obviously the economy was in negative. When the economy is performing negative and then you are required to service debts, obligations, it becomes relatively difficult. Just like maybe the context of what we should be able to say, when the budget is running in the national budget structure, we are spending about 40% in terms of the servicing. So now with the negotiation, we have got a breather. That's the reason why you see the free education getting about 2.5 pupils right to school, then the employment of about 41,000 plus. Those are the issues that are basically coming as good effects which are happening from that point. I'm not speaking as speaking on government side, no, but I'm just speaking from my professional, and this is what basically has interplayed from there. Yes, we've seen some trunk roads being worked on. We've seen some economic roads also being worked on in a way, some of them that are also on PP model, and also seeing the improvement in the unethical conduct within the governance system. So that man also is going through there as well.
I'm going to ask, I know we will be getting back to you, Dr. Chikwenda, when we start specifically talking about your sector, but I want you to participate in this. He's talking about the saving from data restructuring, which is going, mostly to social sectors. As a business, person, wouldn't you have loved a balance? Some going to the social sectors and some going into economic sectors. That is part of the question, Doc. The other question is, there's no doubt this country has become one of the most attractive investment destination to the foreign investors. You can't say the same about you, the local investors who are not enjoying the same benefits that foreign investors are enjoying. Two important questions there.
Yeah, I think you are very right that the country has become more attractive, and I have seen at ZDA significant investment commitment in billions actually, which is coming in. Yeah, but the local investors, people, they're also taking up their space. I've seen a lot of activity, but obviously when you look at when you compare with foreign investors, they come with a lot of maybe arbitrage and a lot of support from their countries of origin, which in most cases is not the case for the local investor. We have institutions like the Citizens Economic Empowerment, which is supposed to help, but again, maybe going forward, we should be trying to create a balance so that certainly maybe conditions that are more favorable, like affirmative action, are reserved for the local people. I say this, for instance, in my sector, to subject maybe a local investor to the same that an international investor goes through, maybe you might want to repivot that, because they are high barrier, it's a high barrier industry. So if you want to see more of your people participating in the energy sector, for instance, it's a high barrier industry. So government may wish, through affirmative action, see what interventions can be created to ensure that the local people are well scaffolded, well supported, so that they're able to stand. But if you leave them on their own, it's to find their own equilibrium, they may get swamped by the international investors. So I think affirmative action is going to be something that we need to pay more attention to that.
The saving of the money, wouldn't you like most of this to go to economic sectors?
Well, obviously, I know that I've also been asking myself to try and track where the loans were borrowed, where the money is going to, but the savings cannot be underplayed. It's been quite significant, and when you look at 2 million kids going back into school, that's major. When you look at the rate of civil servants that are being employed, I think that's also significant. It's going to capacity building, but in terms of pushing to economic sector, obviously, I know the cake is never enough, but you'd want to see something coming to certain sectors as well.
Absolutely. Incentives, Calvin, businessmen are complaining, again, more or less the same question, that there's an imbalance. I was reading an article the other day that a business investor in the economic zone has been given a 12-year, tax holiday. I mean, really? If this is true, is that fair when we're supposed to be getting a tax from the investor, maybe in the next 2-3 years after inception? That's one question. The second question is about trade. I know Africa is not an island. We have to trade with everybody. Now our biggest trading partner is China. Shouldn't we complement that, Calvin, and enhance trading among Africans, inter-African, trade? Shouldn't that be the starting, point for Africa and indeed Zambia?
Thank you so much, Ambassador, for that question. I think in my own view, in regards to the MFES tax holiday, I took very quite interesting interest just to underscore what has actually been able to play out in that deal. The beginning point, first also, I must have to mention that I think our media, in essence, they are not helping us to cover the key details of what basically goes out there. So this has come as a blanket cover to say there are incentives, but there are also things that have actually been put in place. My study of things around these incentives is that it's only allowing for five years in terms of duty import, then zero tax on dividends, and also zero corporate tax, meaning these three things are the only ones that have been given that leverage. Then the mechanics around this is one, we are trying to gravitate toward the industrialization. So meaning when an investor comes there, when he's importing, remember I mentioned of the import-free import duty, he is only allowed about 4 things that you need to import at zero tax. 1, raw materials that they're complementing to make things there. Then 2, machinery. Then 3, some other, complementary machinery that can also be there. So basically just about 3 or 4 big things that are basically given that zero tax for them to work out things there. The main aim and overriding factor here is, 1, is to create that industrialization appetite, meaning Zambia, as it's going to, now connecting to your question, connecting to the second question, as it's going to play into inter-market or inter-regional market where we have to trade with each other in Africa, Zambia should be a stronger base in terms of industrial activities. So we can only drive when we incentivize at inception. So that is what we're trying to do from that point. Then on the flip side, the tax holiday has got certain safeguards. That taxi interplayer agent should not source things outside Zambia, which Zambians have. So you should support strongly Zambian SME. That speaks now into tax bracket for the SME, speaks into revenue. And then the other aspect is to make sure that that investor, when they bring their own expertise, they should have transfer of knowledge to the local people at a certain point, which means some expertise will have to leave at some point, meaning Zambians will take up that job. So now, when you look also on the other side of this framework, it's also speaking of supporting local employment, meaning they have to employ massively. Yeah. Right now, maybe a case in study is that we are talking of investment actualized to about 5.6 billion US dollars, which is actually in end phase in totality. Then we're talking of about 20,000 employees being on the, of course, payee, which in any case now ZLA benefit from there. And if you are to quantify what we are losing out, we are losing out only about 1.5% of the total GDP in terms of revenue to growth or revenue or tax to revenue. Meaning, when you look at the total revenue collection basket from the payee or from that point of everything that we're talking about, we are only losing about 7.5% of the total tax basket from that incentive. So it's basically just stimulating the growth. After some time, maybe after 5 years now, the stage will go now into another phase where they start now getting 50% of what we should have been getting. So that framework is there. So that is what is actually there. So to lump up everything from that point where it's just coming as a blanket cover, I think that is where it is wrong.
Very quickly, the question, I think we missed, why is this government not taking advantage of the massive resources they can get from Sujilai, they can get from gold? The Ghanaian president was here recently, and he talked about the massive money Ghana is getting, 10 billion, I think, in a couple of months. Why are we not doing that?
Okay, so
and also why are we not taking advantage of the benefits from copper, electric, cars, AI? Are we short of thinking capacity?
Okay, so this one, I think I'll lump up with the two more, the Inter-Africa as well as China, trading weight. So the reason why we are not basically taking full-scale participation in our local mining industry because of the initial plan around the mining sector. And again, what we have done to ourselves is that because of the political tenure that comes with an aspect of trying to make things quicker, the high expectation with the voters out there is quite something that obviously disturbs the economic structure. We can start doing things slow by slow, but there is an high expectation. And we are linking it now to cost of living. So if you find that in the midst of what you want to build, and some projects, they are quite longer in terms of trying to actualize effects. So in the process of the mining sector, it's relatively difficult. If maybe you can allow me to take 1 or 2 minutes here. What I'm trying to put across is that if you look at just in the recent past, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, Zambia's economy was in comatose. What basically happened is that we were basically having challenges with Mopani, which is a common knowledge everywhere. We are having challenges with KCM with litigation issues. So all these teething issues and other mines which are not able to give life, we can see from there. So the benchmark was to first work out the clearance of all these aspects to make it more viable and more, strong platform for us to actually make things work out from there. So now that we have to attend the mining issues, we iron out all the teething issues. So we seem now to be on a one step ahead. So now the next part of what we should be able to do is to now start getting or attracting investors that should come now and start interplaying into value addition. And that is the next stage, of which I understand that the key factor, even when it comes to China, we were trying to see how best we can align now with the China in essence, of course, based on the fiscal performances. Our debt issue, I'm going back to the debt so that you understand it from that point. We've got a larger chunk with China. And what basically plays out is that whenever we've got Chinese mining paying tax, they have first to go into dollar. By then, to dollar change from Chinese. They are supply. Here's a situation where they are supplying to China. They get their Chinese currency. Now they convert it into dollar. Then from dollar they pay Zambian government. So to avoid all these overlapping factors, and yet Zambia's got debts direct with China and some other Chinese creditors out there. We've now made a leverage to say, look, we can basically accept tax in Chinese currency, so that it avoids exchange losses. It gives us leverage also to actually, if you want to buy something from China as a government or as a country, in a way, we should be able to just use that chamber without having had any difficulties. So now the situation is, we're not going to go entirely with China, though there are geopolitical tensions or issues that could actually also arise from there, but we are trending it very carefully to a point whereby even when you look at the composition factor of tax receipt in terms of exchange market, we're talking of dollar sustaining 60%, we're talking of about 15% with the Chinese currency. Then Kwacha now is given strength also to interplay into this, meaning Kwacha is occupying about 25%. So what we're trying to do is to avoid, in fact, even this answers even in the question of forex market. The forex market is not having high demand appetite for it. Based on the dollar's demand, factors that we have actually been able to see over time. There is now a less demand because we are basically having Chinese currency to pay this. If we didn't have that channel, we would have been forcing and pressurizing dollar. But now we can have leverage to go even to other currencies so that we can actually be able to pay. And that's the situation.
Dr. Chikwenda, do you tend to feel, that these economic gains are not interlinked with other economic sectors? Here I'm talking about a chain here. What am I saying? I feel other sectors should have been benefiting from this economic gains. For example, the mining sector now is the major economic resource. Shouldn't you have liked the government to enhance artisanal performance or any sector related to the mining sector? Shouldn't schools, universities be investing more in recruiting and giving, more places to engineers in these mining sectors? I hope you understand what I'm trying to say. I see a broken chain here. We're not interlinked so that, there are benefits from the gains of the mining sector that should spread to interlinked sectors.
Yeah, I think, the best way I can answer that question, Frank, is looking from where we are coming from. We went through very challenging patch, from especially the debt that was choking us. I think this thing has been labored a lot. And so when you are trying to fix something, you move in a systematic way. You do a lot of housekeeping issues to lay the groundwork, and you take out first of all what was choking you in order to free the space. And you stabilize the tax regime, especially around the mining. I know we had some inconsistencies in the policy which affected some developmental programs in the mine, like exploration and things like that. And they have long period of time to begin to give more results. Some of these interventions that we are seeing can see results almost immediately there and then. So my understanding is that as we are correcting the situation, you begin to see more linkages forming to support other sectors. You cannot crack the entire silver lining at the goal with one silver bullet. So the whole puzzle, the whole thing will be shaping out, to bring an economy to where it's supposed to be or to renovate it. I don't think you can achieve that within 5 years. It's a longer period. So during this period, you will see some things looking like they are being neglected or not much is being benefited, but ultimately things will begin to inform and iterate into other sectors which might need also to be supported.
You people who are informed are able to appreciate, this. The majority of people who are electorate are not able to appreciate this. Why? Lack of information. Is this something that is missing?
Yes, of course. We've talked about communication issues. Communication must be in a language that people understand, that people appreciate. This has been talked about many times, not just in a broad sense, of course, the economy, but also in other sectors like the energy sector. We have said, look, we need to use language which people understand and appreciate what exactly is going on. So I also feel that we need to do much more as a country in aligning and repivoting information in a way that the ordinary people on the ground will understand. There's a massive disconnect with what is happening on the ground and the progress that is being achieved. It needs to be consistently explained to the people in a language that people understand. It's very, very important.
I'll be coming to you very shortly, Calvin, to ask you what it would take for this economy, these economic indicators, to be felt, to be translated, into lower, prices, and how resilient, this, economy is. Before I do that, Dr. Chikwanda, your field again, energy is very, very key. Is this absence, I think that's the word, absence of load shedding, we more or less back to normal? Can this be sustained, or is this artificial because of the elections? Is this 24-hour power, going to be, sustained? I want you to be frank on this, because I honestly don't know suddenly what is happening, where all the problems have disappeared too.
Yeah, I've been asked this question so many times in the last.
It was dark for a long time, and suddenly it's bright. Magic.
Yeah.
Abragada.
Well, not really, but again, it's a communication issue in a language that people understand. That is key. In a language that people understand. When you see most of our communication, they are in English. We use a lot of technical jargon, and the bulk of the people there, they don't understand. I have even mentioned, even to Zesco, that look, you have got retail customers, 1.5 million people, of which the bulk of that, they're in these compounds where they don't perhaps even know how to read the English, they don't have access to newspapers, and so on and so forth. So we need to innovative ways of communicating to the people that we make them understand. Zambia consumes about, at peak demand, we're still sitting around 2,400 megawatts, which is maybe 225. And when you look at when we were in load shedding, what had happened is that, yes, we lost water, so we were importing some electricity. And we have increased the importation of electricity. I think importation is sitting almost 600 thereabout megawatts. And then you have got Mamba, which uses coal, that is 300 megawatts. When you add these two, already you are sitting at about 900 megawatts. And then Zesco itself, even when we had almost reached our knees on the ground, we were still generating something. But when you look at the outflows in the water levels, I think they are generating perhaps 1,000 megawatts plus in between Kafue complex and the Kariba auditorium. They are able to plus or minus, I think even more than that. So when I add that, I'm already coming to about 1,900 megawatts, or even more than that. Then you add in some solar projects like in Zambia and whatever's coming, and then people have also invested at residential level quite heavily. You cannot take that out, including some companies as well. So when you add everything together, you can see clearly that we are sitting somewhere around slightly above 2,000 megawatts. That's where we are. That is quite significant to reduce load shedding, the rationing of the power significantly. So that picture, even me as a researcher, I'm able to see that yes, this is possible. Now, there is also a possibility that we're producing. Yes, it's true. We are producing more from our water reservoirs. That is true. And I didn't even add in dollar energy, which is also giving us about 100 megawatts. So when you add these numbers, you can see clear that maybe we are around maybe 2,000, and that's a peak demand 2.4. So you can see that I think the situation has come a little bit down. Now, the issue is, can we sustain the utilization of production that is coming from our water bodies? Yeah, that is the issue, because the water level, the volume that was given to ZESCO and the Zimbabwe Power Corporation is less than that was given to, slightly higher, I think, than what was given last year, but is still not at a level that you would want to be at. So if you don't have any good rainfall this year, can the rate at which we are going sustain? In my view, it cannot. But then we have got some projects, firmed up projects that are coming up. Phase 2 of Mamba which is 300 megawatts, is coming up, and there is some other projects that are in the pipeline which can give about 500 megawatts, which can significantly help to mitigate any potential sliding back into load shedding, unless there is a complete disruption to what is firmed up, what is going to come online this particular year towards the end. Yeah. So
you got two minutes before we go to the news. Calvin, what is it going to take, for the, man on the street, to benefit from these, economic indicators, especially in terms of pricing? Because let's be honest, it's these basics, that really are key to appreciate, economic growth.
Okay, thank you so much. I think the best cause of action here is to make sure that the fiscal discipline is quite maintained. We do not need to have some habit of extra expenditure when it comes to this. Especially if we reference to the aspect of public expenditure columns, we should not be able to please the voters in a way, because obviously what is supposed to happen that the budget should remain quite intact as per projected figures. Then the other aspect is to make sure that the energy sector is insulated from any eventuality or any sudden shock. In the influence also, we're supposed to work out some model of supply of security with regards to fuel, which is quite a risk factor in this. Then we need to make sure that the exit market is sustainable as well, with that prediction that we need to to anchor from that perspective. Then the other bigger part that I should be able to mention, that Zambia should have a credible election, free and fair election. Then we should be able to see that some of these things will start falling in place.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. We are talking about economic issues, and when we get back in the second part, we'll dedicate most of the time to the impact of the Middle East war on oil production and supply. We'll also talk about illicit flight or foreign exchange. They try to give it a good name. It's actually stealing $3 billion disappear from the country every year. My guests on the program this morning, Kelvin Sanga, who is an economist, and Dr. Johnston Chikwenda, who is an energy expert. We go to the news. Join us in the next 10 minutes or so.
30 years of hits, talk, and real moments.
The 28th Annual General Meeting of the Copperbelt Energy Corporation PLC CEC will be held virtually via Zoom webinar through the CorpServe EAGM platform and physically at CEC Ravens Country Club on Friday, the 27th of March 2026, starting at 8:30 hours. The registration window for the virtual AGM participation will open on the 9th of March 2026 and will automatically close at the commencement of the AGM on 27th March 2026 at 8:30 hours. To register, go to eagm.corpservezambia.com.zm/EAGM and follow the steps. You will receive further information on how to join the meeting. To sign up on the AGM platform, you will need your Lusaka Securities Exchange Luce ID, phone number, and a valid email address. If you experience any problems during the AGM or require any assistance, please call the number provided in your registration information for immediate support. For detailed registration information, please visit our website at www.cec.com.zm or our Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn pages. You may also refer to the press for registration details. The annual report will be available on the company's website, where members can download or print it. Printed copies will only be provided to members who request them. Requests must be made to CorpServe Transfer Secretaries by calling +260 950 968 435 or +260 771 881 287 or by emailing info@corpservezambia.com.zm at least 14 days before the AGM.
CEC, your partner in energy.
The community news is brought to you with the compliments of National Milling Corporation. National Milling Corporation, Zambia's pride nationwide.
Chongwe Council installs 49 boreholes. Mpolungu wetland farming areas to be identified. To present the community news, I'm Lusovilo Gondway. Chongwe Municipal Council has installed 49 boreholes across all 21 wards in the district. The project, aimed at combating persistent water shortages in the area, was implemented in 2025 using the Constituency Development Fund, CDF. Assistant Public Relations Officer Cecilia Musonda has told Zanis that the boreholes have eased residents' struggles with limited access to safe water, especially in remote areas. Ms. Musonda has further assured that the council remains committed to improving water supply and sanitation services in the district. The Department of Community Development in Mpolungu District says it will work with the Ministry of Agriculture to identify potential areas for wetland farming this year. Mpolungu District Community Development Officer Kane Mbambo says the department wants to identify ideal places that have potential to produce crops and are suitable for use to grow crops under the wetland cropping exercise. Zanis reports that Mr. Mbambo also disclosed that the Department of Community Development has increased the number of beneficiaries under the wetland cropping program in the 2026 to 2027 and 2028 seasons from the previous 700 to 1,000. The District Community Development Officer said the government has extended the period in which beneficiaries will receive the funds from the previous 2 years to 3 years. And Mpolungu District Commissioner Gerhard Sikazwe is happy with the increase in the number of people that have been added to the wetlands farming program. To end the community news, another look at the headlines. Chongwe Council installs 49 boreholes and Mpolungu wetland farming areas to be identified. Keep listening to Let the People Talk.
The community news was brought to you with the compliments of National Milling Corporation. National Milling Corporation, Zambia's pride nationwide.
mdala namvera ati mzimayi wapaka nthemba avuta
cha
ati vantu vachitotantama mdala vinango vachitopakinga mamotoka na matayi pamkosi sofu
wavuta na chiyani mzimayi
vitumbuwa vamene vanzake monga sivalipo ka ine nona monga ni mankhwala vogwiragwira vachiboyi ndava vachilamo
imwe boza simunkhwala iyayi
manje ni vicha
ni vitumbuwa flour mix yaba National Milling Corporation vichoka flour yokonzeka kudala nikufaka machebe manzi na isti pasi wafrainga
vitumbuwa flour mix ndi flour osaganiza kale kwa inu ndikungo fryinga chabe musavuta vitumbuwa flour mix wasopano apezeka mu matumba a 10 kgs kuchokela ku abwenzi anu antau zonse awa ndi a National Milling Corporation. National Milling Corporation, Zambia's pride nationwide.
Kitwe, rise and shine. If you're craving a breakfast that truly satisfies, Keg and Coppersmith has you covered. From hearty classics to all your favorite morning bites, we're serving up the kind of breakfast that sets the tone for your whole day. And the best part, breakfast is served from 08 hours and available throughout the day. So whether it's early morning or midday, you can enjoy it anytime. Visit us at Mokuba Mall in Kitwe, the best spot in town for great food, refreshing drinks, and even better vibes. Keg and Coppersmith. We'll see you there.
What kind of oil are you using for your car? I'm using Shell Helix. No matter what you drive, we got the oil for you. Old on new engine, we keep it going. Vroom, vroom. Works under pressure, really good under stress. Be rest assured, Shell Helix feeling fresh. And my mechanic says, never go wrong.
Available at spare part shops, distributors outlets, and all engine service stations countrywide. Shell Helix. Drive on.
3 decades.
What's up? What's up?
One powerful voice.
That's right, 30 years I've been associated with Radio Phoenix, thanks to the late, founder of this amazing station, Erohiki. Oh my God, my friend, your spirit, keeps on moving and moving. And thanks to the staff. Back to the program this morning, we're looking at economic issues. And in this second part, we'll be looking at the impact of the war in the Middle East on oil production. And my guest once again, Dr. Johnston Chikwanda, who is an energy expert, and my good friend, Kelvin Tsanga, who is an economist. Before we go to the issue of oil production, I want us to thrash out 2 issues, starting with you, Kelvin. Illicit flight of $3 billion, dollars, which could make a positive change to this, country. I want you to clarify what exactly goes on there. And also, let's take advantage to clear one issue which has been doing its rounds online, and that involves one minister in the government who is being accused of running a pharmaceutical, company, which he initiated, 5 months ago, and already this company has been awarded with $25 million to bring in or to manufacture pharmaceutical products. Please clarify those 2 issues, and then after that I'll bring in Dr. Chikwanda and even you to complement on lack of employment creation, or where should employment be generated.
Thank you so much, Ambassador. Maybe the beginning point, I also have to floor a disclaimer, because many times people would say, you are speaking for government, you are speaking for this party. I'm very neutral in terms of political support. I don't support any party, but I do my profession correctly.
Welcome on board. We all accused. I'm accused of all sorts of things.
Others have even said that UPND cadre, but I don't know. I don't know how UPND looks like, So maybe the beginning point is that in difference to the aspect of what we call economic leakage in regards to the report that has actually been going on through the auditors general or even the financial intelligence, I think it's very well understood to say that missing or going with this aspect of economic leakage, it is something that has to be looked in a different way. One, we are not talking of siphoning that as an umbrella figure. It is coming from different composite of factors. One, we are talking of tax invasion. Being involved there. We are talking of corruptions of some sort happening there as well, and the declaration of duty or any other tax issues from that perspective. So it's a combination. There can also be aspect to do with maybe even public stealing of public finance through public officers and all that. So it's a composition of that element. But again, it's important also to say that we need to strengthen the anti-ethic bodies like and corruption and many others, even including the Zambia police, to ensure that some of these things are kept. And that's the reason why, if you are to even ask me now, it brings back to the issue of debt restructuring. Part of the money that we borrowed even from IMF, some funds have to go to some of these regulatory and law enforcing agencies, so that we strengthen them to make sure that we curve some of these issues. So that is what maybe I should be able to point across around that issue. Now, the second issue, where the Minister of Finance in particular has been tagged to say is a shareholder in this. I don't think from my own understanding it's not correctly standing from there, because I understand that whenever we form a public-private partnership of some scheme, like in the case where we want to champion pharmaceutical products or pharmaceutical activities, it's important to look at it from this basis where the Minister of Finance usually standing as a shareholder on behalf of Zambian. So if the company is starting with Zambia plus whatever it is, and it's a Zambian linked company with a private linked company, the Minister of Finance in this case is our main man who stand on behalf of Zambians, and usually the name can even be bearable on Pakla's papers. That's what I know, unless there's something else.
Tell me, Dr. Chikwanda, are we now as a country being driven by what I call personality distraction community or a nation? Because that issue was actually raised, if I'm not mistaken, in Parliament by a member of Parliament who should have done a thorough research on the development of this company. Generally, are we now just bent on destroying ourselves?
Well, the environment for a long time has been polarized, and when you have a polarized environment, the trend to tear down one another and drag one is very high, and that's how it has been, and which is very unfortunate. Talking about this matter, I'm hearing about it for the first time, maybe because of my frequent travel in the recent past, so I'm not very privy into the intricacies of what exactly was going on, but what I know is that if is a state-owned company, if government forms company, which it does from time to time, usually they would use the Minister of Finance as a representative of government, and sometimes also Secretary to the Treasury. Those are, they are used to hold the shares on behalf of the Zambian people. So in this particular instance, I have not seen these documents, and so I don't have enough facilities, I think, to give to process a sufficient answer on this.
The majority, of the population now are youths. Both of you, my guests. Unemployment, we keep on saying, is a time bomb. Universities now are money-making, machines, producing lots of graduates. But that's all the universities are doing. Okay, I don't want to be misunderstood. It's a profit-making institution. We all go out there when we start a business with the motive of making money. But do we sit and say, am I directing these graduates into sectors where they are going to be employed? That's number one. Is the government, providing, and I want to make an emphasis, providing an environment, to generate more employment for the youths? I know the president has initiated internship. I think it's just a drop. Okay, something is being done. It's a little drop, in the ocean. Before we go to the oil issue, unemployment, very quickly. What can be done, especially in an economy that is supposed to be growing? Doc.
Yeah, I'll say something, and I think Kelvin will also chip in significantly. In my view, I would rather have educated youths who are struggling to find employment than uneducated youth. Now, the issue of job creation is really, really topical, and it's a big issue that you cannot underplay. When I was at Investors, the time we were living, and even before, buses used to come from the mines. You're graduating, you find the buses, they take you straight to the mines, and straight away. That's how it used to be, and that is no longer the case. And our kids are coming left, right, and center from different universities. The pace at which we are producing them is more than the pace at which they are being absorbed in the industry, and so it falls to the same. You grow the economy growing at a rate that is significant to start translating into tangible, greater opportunities that can be absorbing them. I see opportunities around the SMEs, because SMEs are the backbone of an economy. If you support the SME segment, believe me, you can create a lot of job opportunities, because one person has got 2 jobs, 3 jobs, 10 jobs, 50 jobs, and when you aggregate all these SMEs, and when you look at the companies that are registered at PACRA, and you come up with a framework that, look, just each of you, can you employ 10 people? This is what benefit you are going to get. This is what we are going to do, the incentives. If you can employ so many people, you can really absorb quite a lot. I know it will still be a drop, because there are a lot, but the SME still gives a landscape which is better for job creation in the country, and agriculture as well. Agriculture, that one definitely, it employs a lot of people, and supporting it further, it can also employ a lot of people. And then into your minings as well, as the mines are growing bigger, and we need to see a lot of internships being absorbed. The issue of internship, I think this thing, maybe it needs to be supported by law, maybe to just come up with something, because during the time
it's not a policy
in the universities, we used to go into the mines, and all these companies would absorb a lot of students to go into internships. But now it has completely no longer the case. So it may be possible, I think, to find a way of passing a law to ensure that there is guaranteed space for internship, because some students can't even graduate because they have no internship to fulfill the requirements for the graduation from the university.
Because as it is, I don't even know whether these ministries have got a budget, for that, and they don't know the numbers, perhaps, of how many they can take in. And if this is done properly, it's something that it can be extended to private sector.
And the private sector must be, especially those in license conditions. They must know that you must be picking up students for internship, because some of them, the courses that they are doing, they can't find the practical exposure within government setting. It has to be in the private sector. If it is those that are in the mines, those that are in the energy sector, in the manufacturing sectors, they have to be absorbed as interns into those private sector frameworks, because government is not doing those kind of things.
Absolutely.
So we have to leverage and enforce this across the entire economy.
Gavin?
Thank you so much. Ambassador, we are sitting at 11 million working population in the country. And again, also what we have, people that are in informal employment, about 4 million, leaving a serious deficit of about 6 million unemployed. That tells you to say that our economy is not moving as fast as we should. And again, the issue of course, where we are coming from, the background is something that we should also be able to look at seriously, and now we should be able to sustain. There are a lot of a number of significant aspects that we can actually be able to point at as well. One, our education framework has not been able to give that good output in terms of matching industry requirements. That has come out to be a very key factor into this. Then two, we have not been able to incentivize the private sector very well. In even the kind of Zambia's budgetary, aspect, the implementation of the budget takes about 50% of all its total budget into wet bill. Already, that is a serious misnomer. We should be able to have at least 25% of people working for government, meaning we need to have a big chunk of people working in the private sector to interplay. Then this is what is actually even connecting to the 24-hour continuous process of economic learning, meaning we need to have that model of continuous learning of productivity so that we can actually be able to meet up the demanding pressure needs. So with what is happening right now is that we basically need to find some policy levers that should be able to speak of stimulating private interest. And again, maybe the typical example here is that we are talking of energy at some point. The energy sector in itself has a lot of challenging factors. We also touched on the aspect to do with the mining. The reason why I'm talking about this, energy is a key enabler that multiplies good effect across many sectors. If we do not have a substantial impact being created from the energy sector in particular, then we have a repercussion in other sectors. Then when you talk about mining is a baseline for this country in terms of supporting Forex, in terms of supporting GDP profile and everything else. I will also refer to agriculture. Agriculture has got more numbers in terms of employee or staff complementary, but the challenge that is there, it still pays very low compared to the mining. Yet the mining, which is doing very well, which is a bigger share of our economic aspect in terms of performances, is not able to absorb a good number of people out there. Usually they are now using technological enabled facilitation and all that for them to foster production, which has been a very difficult situation from that basis. So now when you look at the whole comparative case, I think what we need is to promote more entrepreneurship, as I can also follow it from Doc. But again, we need also to look at how best can we create a strong capital formation. Zambia has got a very poor finance system, which does not give support for growth. And this is where we are having challenge. Even if there are interventions like Zambia credit guarantee schemes, the SME credit guarantee schemes with Bank of Zambia, and many other incentives, including even Zano fund, which has actually been put in the budget in this year, they don't seem to have a quicker way of moderating the growth that's supposed to be there. There are too much of conditionalities that are aligned there. That's the reason why you don't receive a good effect. Even when you dive into maybe the stimulus package, some of them which are basically being put in place, they are not giving that vibrating aspect as well. Much more when you look at the complexity of licenses on the private sector, even as an SME. For us to champion the entrepreneurship entrepreneurship development here, we need to look at the stock of policies that we have put in place. If anything, we need to have one single file in terms of police, licenses, so that we should be able to avoid these, challenges that we face most of the times. But again, it becomes difficult. Maybe an interesting component here is we've got a Ministry of SME. What are they doing?
Yeah.
Most of them, if I were to tell you the assessment that I've done for the past 4 years now, they are being more on business development services as opposed to pushing the policies. You see, that is where the lack is. And again, if you look at it critically, Minister of Commerce and the SME, they are still overlapping functions. So that, again, brings a problem. How do you grow SME when you've got these issues which are not matching up from there? So those are issues that we've actually been. So it's important to look at how best can you stimulate the private sector investment,
right?
Put incentives that should be able to speak, especially when you know that this is an emerging enterprising agent or SME. It's important to look at it from that perspective. So that is what has been causing this issue. Now the solution, of course, to look at creating export facilitation, ensure that we go into validation across all the key sectors. That will create jobs, and that's what you need to do.
Right, Dr. Chwanda. I'm not underplaying this segment of the Middle East war, and I'll just combine all the questions into your 5-6 minutes presentation. Was this war necessary? Who are the players involved? Who is being engulfed? I like that. Who is being engulfed in this Gulf War, in the oil production and supply? What is the impact on the world and Zambia in particular? What is the response of Zambia? That is what you're going to deal with. And then after that, Calvin can talk about the impact on the economy in the near future and distant future. 5 minutes on that. I think I've made it easy.
I think that is not fair.
I've made it easy for you.
That is supposed to take us a whole day.
I know,
discussing,
but combining it maybe 6-7 minutes, so that people can call in after that.
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, the wars in the Middle East have been raging for a very, very long time, from the olden days of the Babylonian empires and the Persian empires, the Byzantine empires, the Ottoman. They keep on repeating. The pattern there is very, very deep, which is very complex to even understand. And of course, Iran has been accused of enriching uranium to make nuclear bombs, which is beyond what them are saying is for civil use. But the accusations are that you want to create nuclear bombs, and so that threat cannot be accepted by by certain countries and the international community. That is where things are starting from. And so reports emerge that they are within a short, few breaths before creating a nuclear bomb. And so there were some interventions which took place, and some attacks upon it. And you see, Iran, in trying to defend itself, has made a lot of what we call horizontal escalation by attacking the neighboring countries, and which has created the conditions for a global conflict, because the conflict is being globalized, so to speak. And when you look at the full impact of that war and where it is heading to, if there is no immediate de-escalation, the best way to describe is that it's simply an attack on humanity. I know we are concentrating on the impact on fuel, but there is much more than that, and I'll get to that. When you look at the Middle East is a market for Africa. It contributes 20% to the global trade on oil, but that same hub, the Middle East, is a hub for beneficiation, meaning what they are known for, the crude oil, the gas, they beneficiate it. So it goes to say that the Middle East is also a hub for the supply of petrochemicals. And these petrochemicals, they go to the agriculture industry, they go to mining industry as well. And so it's threatening food security, because the petrochemicals that are supposed to be coming to the global economy, they are not coming. The fertilizer, which is supposed to be coming to the global, is not coming. Even for countries that blend their own fertilizers locally, they still get chemicals from there, which they use in the blending facilities. And so the entire situation is such that not only fuel gets impacted, but also critical chemicals that go to supporting the agriculture sector, fertilizers and the sprayers and mining reagents and mining solvents, so on and so forth, including what goes to semiconductors, the gas which goes to computers and phones, and the plastics as well, the polymers which we use for making all plastic products. Comes from the Middle East and partly from SA. Now, there is an impact reaching us and the rest of the world arising from what we are not able to get from the Middle East. But also important to look at how the Middle East also is impacted, because that pathway, the Gulf of the Persian Gulf, is used to receive more than 80% of food for the Middle East. All the countries that are there, more than 80% of the food supply is through that corridor. So there are thousands of ships and vessels that are stuck, others inside the Gulf, others outside the Gulf. They are not able to deliver food into the region. So we're talking of more than 100 million people in the Gulf region facing a potential food crisis, because the food supply cannot reach the region because of the war. So as we are talking about how we are impacted about this, it's also important to look at the flip side of how the other people there on that side are also impacted. That's why I'm saying this war is shaping out as an attack on humanity. So coming now to our situation, in fact, before I even come to that, we are praying and having our fingers crossed that the fiber optic cables should not be tampered with and cut, because these cables that run from Europe, the internet cables in the Mediterranean Sea, in the Red Sea, they go into the Persian Gulf and they come out to go to other Asian countries around the globe. They are lying on the seabed in the Persian Gulf there, in the Strait of Hormuz, which is a very narrow path. And as mines, land mines, sea mines are being placed there, things are exploding there. Intentionally, if those cables get damaged, or unintentionally they get damaged, then the global internet can just go down in a very significant way. It involves
a lot of things, financial
transactions, and all those things can get affected. In 2024, 2025, in the Red Sea, the cables got damaged. I think the rebels operating out of Yemen, the Houthis, they hit a ship, and the anchorage of that ship fell to the seabed, and as the ship was moving, that anchorage crawled into some cables and they snapped. It took 5 months to repair those cables, because the ships that repair these cables could not even get to the place because of security concerns. Right now, companies that repair also these sea cables have declared force majeure because they cannot go into that side. More than 20,000 personnel, they are trapped. The crew for the ships that are trapped there, more than 20,000, they cannot leave the place. So it's massive. It's not something that can be underplayed. Now, coming to fuel, where we are most interested, perhaps for our context here, although we should be worried about petrochemicals as well, and mining reagents as well, and is that more than 85% of countries have so far increased palm prices significantly, and the gas. It is just a question of time. Even for Zambia, we should brace as a country for this to happen. It's not something that you can duck, because we have very, very little options as a country to duck this kind of a crisis, because we don't produce crude oil in the country, we don't produce gas, we have got poor intra-Africa trade, so we don't get from Angola, we don't get from one another.
Reserves.
We don't have any strategic reserves. We have a lot of tank farms across the country, but it's a stock in there which is supposed to sit as a strategic petroleum reserve. That we don't have, because we don't even have a policy which is supposed to inform and guide how you are going to manage your strategic petroleum inventory. The stock that we are talking about, and for a long, long time, I'm very impressed that we were found with the diesel that can last us 2 months. This has never happened in a very, very, very long time. Usually, on average, we've been having stock levels of 10 days, 14 days, 15 days, 20 days. By now, we should have been sweating, all of us, if we didn't have that kind of diesel, which is the operational inventory anyway at hand. So, how to respond to that depends on what we have on our side, because countries respond differently when faced with a crisis like that.
Was it right for the president, to invite, the players in this sector and request them not to start hoarding fuel? Why do I say this? Yes, where I stand, I think it was a good thing too. Are they obliged, these players not to hoard fuel, because this is an open market, free market? If they're not obliged, would it have helped, to come up with, I don't know, I don't make laws, an emergency, law, STI, so that ERB compels these companies not to hold?
Yeah. Before I, slide deeper into that, take a deep dive.
Yeah.
I want to state this, Ambassador, a crisis on petroleum sector, a fuel crisis, is worse than electricity crisis. Those two, when you compare, because the electricity crisis, when you can go to neighboring countries to import. We have other proven technologies on the market which you can deploy, like solar, so on and so forth. But when it comes to fuel crisis, the options are very, very limited. You can't even go to neighboring countries if you don't have well-structured infrastructure like those that already have, like Angola. And also your neighbors will be sweating. And then you don't have other options that you can easily fall on. That makes the fuel crisis worse. So when we say, please, don't hoard, it's we're trying to make sure that there is supply, security of supply. And energy supply is directly related to national security. That is, studies have demonstrated and shown that. So what we would want to see is the flowing of product in the market. But you see, we must also acknowledge and thank the consumers, because the consumers are already aware of what is cooking around, and yet they have not involved in panic buying so far. That is commendable, because if the consumers are to embark on panic buying, believe me, with 1 million vehicles that we have, and most of the people, they drive vehicles and quarter tank, even on E, they will be looking for 50 million liters at once, or even more than that, and we can wipe out the inventory that we have. Now, the hoarding of fuel is not as straightforward. It's not a straight line. It's a bit complex, because who hoards the fuel? First of all, that is what you need to. Is it just the OMC who hoards the fuel, or is it even the consumers hoards it, or the country? Because countries as we are talking now, they are stockpiling their strategic reserves at national level, countries. So they are holding stock because they don't know what is happening. So at country level, hoarding of fuel can also take place where a country is stockpiling. Then you also have got big transnational oil companies that can also hoard because they are trying to exploit opportunities that they are seeing. Then you also have big consumers with a lot of tank facilities on what, who also have started maybe stockpiling, stockpiling. So creating some shortages elsewhere at a pump. Because when you have an energy crisis unfolding, you have to make a decision. Who is a sacrificial lamb? That is it the industry or is it Ambassador Frank Mutuvila who must keep at home and let the industry run? So as things are evolving, you are going to start seeing a certain trend which fuel might support the industry more than the average retail, on the retail, when the rationing itself begin to happen, because there is just little that will be available.
Long-term lessons from this, or long-term reactions from the government, response from the action, and long-term lessons from this very quickly.
Yeah, of course. This is not the first time Zambia has gone through this. In the 1960s, we had a major crisis. We couldn't bring fuel in the country. The southern routes were cut off through modern-day Zimbabwe. Fuel was being thrown into Zambia, and out of that crisis, Zambia invested that crisis very well. The Tazama pipeline was built. So in moments of crisis, we must take advantage and invest that crisis well, the way we have done on the electricity side, where we had a crisis, and out of that crisis we have decided to launch a solar explosion. So on this fuel as well, the issue is, can we start the biofuels? This is more than 15 years since the standards on biofuel were promulgated. Up to now, we have not been able to actualize the biofuel blending into the fuel. If we do that, we'll be able to save about $200 to $300 million as a country, because part of the fuel is being blended locally. So you reduce your exposure from depending on external market. Can we also firm up other routes to diversify as well with, let's say, Angola, which is just nearby here, and has got potential to meet the requirements of the entire region? What is the issue? We need to trade with to promote intra-Africa trade. But also, though, I know I've run out of time, as I was protesting the 5 minutes. It's not just about focusing on the issues that government must do in this particular situation that we are in. There is energy diplomacy which must be driven by government, and there is a private sector participation. There is a regulator, the role of the ERB in this circumstance, but there is also the role of the consumers in managing and dealing with this crisis. In the 1970s, when the US was faced one of the most devastating crises during the presence of Jimmy Carter, they passed a law called the Energy Conservation Act to moderate and manage wasteful fuel expenditures or consumption by the public. That is when the Strategic Petroleum Reserve Policy was also set in motion, which we don't have as a country. People were moderated. The speed limits on the highway were also pushed in. As a result of that act, vehicles that are fuel efficient requirements were also promoted. So there is a lot that can also be done to manage the behavior of consumption on the side of the consumer if we have to deal with a crisis of this magnitude.
Can there be a law and the government should start, and you people who drive big vehicles, that tax is slapped, higher tax on big vehicles and tax reduced on small vehicles?
You see, now
because we gazu fuel here like in the Gulf.
Look, this pattern of being energy inefficient as a country is very high. It's not just on the electricity side, even on the petroleum side. We don't use energy efficiently as a country. It's not just about increasing generation by front-loading, but also the behavior of the consumer must be managed. Carpooling in other countries, it takes place almost every day. Here, your neighbor is here, you are here, you drive in the same direction, work in the same, everyone will be following each other. You know, so carpooling in other countries is a way of cost-saving measures and using energy efficiently.
Secretary to the Cabinet, if you're listening, please sell those big vehicles, V6, whatever. You know, we can't go on like this. We'll be opening the lines now. We'll leave the impact on the economy towards the end. Sure. You know, Kelvin.
Yeah, sure.
Now it's time for you to call in. 226841 is the number.
Good morning, Uncle Frank.
Dr. who is the energy
morning,
expert, and Kelvin Sanga, who is economic advisor. Gentlemen.
Yes. Frank?
Good morning.
Yeah, this is Peter. Good morning, our expert in the studio. Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes, we're getting you.
Yes, I just wanted, it's a concern. I've noticed with concern that we've got these filling stations which are close to residential areas. And in the past, this never used to happen. So what is your comment as experts? Is the law being followed, or is business as usual? And then secondly, is Zambia able to diversify in the energy sector? So those are my contributions. I need your comment from you as experts. Thank you very much.
Number to call us. Good morning. Good morning. 22681. Good morning.
I'm Godfrey calling within specifically Banana. My concern is about that Zambia is losing about 3 billion. Then now, how can we lose like that lot of money without any concern of the those who are in authority? Secondly, the filling station in our communities. That is my concern.
Thank you. 226841 is the number to call us. Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning, Frank.
Morning. Your question.
Good morning, guys in the studio there. Dr. Proud from Garden. First of all, what I want to urge some people who call themselves as energy experts. You know, Angola is a neighbor to Zambia. If Angola they got the oil, why can't we go and find out through those people who are under minerals to see maybe Zambia will go to oil? Because this issue of relying on other countries, that all we should not blame it, because each home you need to prepare calamity. The more our president Haganda says we need to buy maybe finished crude oil in a pump. So let us go and find out in the northwestern province, maybe we can dig oil. This is the filling station where in the compound, part of the garden. They are part of employment. So we are happy about people of garden. We've got a 5 to 6 filling station in the compound. Because unemployment level is going to change in the Zambia government. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Let's take in another one, and then my guest can answer. Good morning.
Hello?
Morning. Your name, please.
Yeah, you are talking to Morgan within the circle.
Yes, Morgan. Very quickly, please.
Yeah, quickly. Good morning, the guest.
Morning.
Yeah, you know, in terms of fuel, you have talked a lot of on fuel energy. We know that there is a conflict in the Middle East, between America and Iran, and we got our fuel from Iraq and Saudi Arabia via Dar es Salaam and come to the line via Ndora refinery. We are aware that the pipeline can't make it. So for us, what we are saying, we should not rely on. But even if you are talking about Angola, these oil from Angola is owing with some investors, Total, and we're talking about Total BP, and others. So they are going to sell us in dollars as well. So what we needed to do.
As fast as you can, so that we can, we can take in more questions. Please go ahead.
Mr. Peter, on filling stations in compounds, there is a regulation. I think there's some regulations at the Energy Regulation Board which informs how many meters you are supposed to observe before you can be allowed. So what happens is that if somebody wants to build a filling station, they go to ZEMA. They present an environmental report of how they are going to manage in case of any disasters happening there or spillages, and ZEMA approves that, and then they go to ERB. So ERB is at the tail end where other preliminary approvals have already been given. So if you see a filling station embedded in between houses, just know that Zambia Environmental Management Agency approved it and the Energy Regulation Board approved it. Now, this has been a very hot issue for a long time, and I've spoken about it actually before that. It appears that the public does not appreciate filling stations embedded in their communities in between houses, even if it is within the confines of the regulation which was amended. So out of, I think, public interest, maybe going forward this needs to be looked at here. In as much as the issue of spillages and underground contamination of underground water has been addressed through improved safety measures in the tank farms and the way they are installed. Part of the danger is when there is an explosion, the filling station when a tanker is there and there is an explosion. So I think I've not come across anyone who has supported this thing of embedding stations in between households. The diversification issue of energy, this has been in our national strategic plans as far back as the 6th National Development Plan. When we said we'll diversify the electricity subsector, we'll also diversify the petroleum subsector. We didn't do much as a country. Only now that we are beginning to see significant diversification on the electricity side. On the petroleum side, unfortunately, up to date, we haven't managed to diversify this sector. So if we had managed to diversify the petroleum sector, when engulfed with a significant crisis, the impact would be less. Right. So this is an opportunity that we have, perhaps, to go back and say, look, in our strategic plans, in our national plans, we said this is what we are going to do to mitigate the risks in the petroleum subsector. Can we accelerate those works? There was Godfrey, I think 3 billion illicity, maybe Kelvin would deal with that. Filling stations in communities have dealt with that. My good friend, Dr. Proud from Garden, is for view that we need to promote local exploration. Again, this has been an issue of policy reversals. During the UNIP government, there was significant thrust, even in Eastern Province and all over, to try and discover oil in this country. When there was change of government, that policy was reversed. Then it resurfaced during Levi Patrick Mwanawasa, may he so continue to rest in peace. But he visited the northwestern province where great potential was found, which required to move the process forward. But after his demise, the next regime that came in didn't pay much attention to oil exploration. Then the 60th president, again may his soul rest in peace, launched the search for oil in Muchinga, I think in Muchinga, Northern Province, in a significant way. Then there's been change of government, and we haven't again seen much thrust in this area. So if we are going to be serious to discover oil in this country and gas, we need consistency of policy, because some countries that started much later than us have discovered this thing, so we need to do much more. With Angola, yes, Angola is the third biggest has got the third biggest reserves in African context, and they have got potential to supply the SADC region. So in the context of Africa Union, the the Africa Union Agenda 2063, the Africa that we want. We're talking about promoting intra-Africa trade. We're talking about creating a single electricity Africa market. We want to see in Africa that trades significantly with itself. You cannot be going 14,000 kilometers to go and look for fuel when your neighbor has got it. You can't, even if they don't have significant refining capacity, but when demand is loaded on them, then they can expand. So we want to see this happening as a SADC region, not just as Zambia.
Very briefly,
just a quick one, so that we can allow more. I think on the loss of 3 billion, it's important to put some tight loop, especially when it comes to public governance. The key issue that we are also not participative as ordinary Zambians. We seem to see government far away, yet we are government as well. We are part and parcel of the government, especially when you even take it deeper with the media as well. It's important to see that some of the things that we see as abnormalities should be able to be reported to the nearest office. If you know that this neighbor is a civil servant and is getting a lot of projects around and all that, sometimes it's important to just take a step to say, look, what is happening there? Of course, it's not witch hunting, but usually, if you see that something's wrong with a public servant, definitely that should be able to work out. Then issues to do with the tax payment, avoidance, and all those things should be able to be taken serious, especially with the aspect to do with appropriate laws and policies. We should not be able to steal from our own basket. When you are running a business, you need to make sure that you are doing it ethically. Even similarly, when you are in public office, it's not an opportunity for you to start stealing. And that's the reason why I'm even wondering right now, we've got so many people want to become MPs because they feel that the government is the only place that they can find money. It should not happen there. Even when you are just an ordinary person doing something out there, you can make Zambia great. It's not about going to parliament for you to get great.
Okay.
Yes.
Right. 2268 for one is the number 2. Just one. Can we take in one caller? Hello, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Very quickly, please. We're running out of time. So sorry.
Let me just begin with a proposal. My proposal can be implemented after elections. That Zambia should have think tanks. Think tanks. Right now, we don't have think tanks, or that we have people who unleash political utopia, euphoria, onomatopoeia, and so on and so forth. But you get people like the two gates there, the people like Nembe, put them together so those people are advising the government any government, not any government, but only going to be done after elections. And lastly, that program of today, I'm appealing to government to get it, and that which was presented last week there was Membe, among others, Dr. Membe, who study these papers and come up with the ideas. But we need a think tank in this country other than engaging ourselves in political utopia, euphoria, and onomatopoeia.
Thank you very much. We're running out of time. Very quickly, summary on the impact on the economy. Very quickly, couple of seconds.
Okay, so first of all, the Middle East has got a lot of repercussions. To begin with, we know that area has got financial hubs, meaning we can interplay with financial resources and services from that perspective. And secondly, we are talking of that area to be a commercial flights area, where of course there is interconnection of some sort regarding Dubai and many others. So if there is a delay in the passenger flights and all that, it becomes a difficult situation, especially when you are trying to do some governance function of some sort from that perspective. Even private sector investors know that they can get affected. Then when you look at the oil, we are talking about almost like 21% of oil being subjected to some levels of negativity of some sort, and that's the reason why you even see now the repercussion coming now into pricing growth. Obviously, we're seeing that the next cycle plan for Zambia in terms of oil for the next calendar month will be able to have a bit of growth from that perspective. Then the other aspect, quickly, it's the issue to do with the shipping routes and lanes, meaning what we'll be able to see there is that even when it comes to copper also passes through that Strait of Hormuz. So the delayed process of transportation can also affect a number of other other key fundamentals like living at home as well. Then the last point, I should be able to mention that this is a standing potential inflation which is coming. So already that disturbance of oil supply chain, including petrochemical products, brings an aspect of inflation which is standing there. So the next set of inflation review or leading will have a triggered factor from that point.
30 seconds, Doc, on your sector, very quickly.
We must take advantage of the crisis and invest it well. It's not the first time that Zambia has gone through a major crisis, but each time we emerge stronger. We invested the Tazama pipeline at a time we couldn't even bring any single drop of fuel in the country. So even with this opportunity that has come, we must ensure that we leverage everyone. This is not something you can lump on one particular sector and accuse. The role of consumers when there is a crisis is very, very critical. We need to bring them on board, explain to them what we expect from them, how they should look at these things, and how they can help the process. The role of the regulator, the role of the media, the role of government. Everyone has got a role in dealing and managing a crisis, even as it is unfolding. It doesn't threaten just fuel alone, it threatens the food security as well.
Thank you. That's it for this Friday. I'd like to thank my guests, Kevin Sisanga, who is an economist, and Dr. Johnston Chikwanda, who is an energy, expert. Have a wonderful weekend. Just an appeal to the politicians, please, refrain from too much politics. And can you give us some issues, economic issues, and solutions, to these countries, challenges. That's all. Have a wonderful weekend. Manchester United is resting, and until sometime next we can enjoy the friendlies, especially the one against Argentina. Thank you to my production team here. Here's a song I love very much, I Live, from Adam. Have a wonderful weekend. Bye-bye.